we've got this right here. This is from Stephen A. Smith. He's got a video called "Is Elon Musk running the Oval Office? Does it matter?" Of course, he's hinting at the, I would say, blue one on conspiracy theories that Elon Musk is the true president. Donald Trump cannot think for himself. He must be a puppet, either of Putin or Elon Musk. So Stephen A. Smith speaks about those conspiracy theories here in a very interesting button-down shirt.
Back to Stephen A. Smith Show. I want to get back to Washington and the telling image we saw from the White House earlier this week. Did y'all see that press conference that Elon Musk held in the Oval Office with his son on hand, no doubt, and with President Trump?
Oh yeah, that was fun. That was fun. Bring your kid to work day. It felt like bring your kid to work day inception, because you've got Trump bringing Elon and then Elon bringing his son.
Sitting at the Resolute desk. Many question Musk and his influence on the White House, especially after seeing this. In fact, 14 states sued Elon Musk and President Trump yesterday, arguing the authority the White House has granted the tech billionaire in his advisory Department of Government Efficiency is unconstitutional.
I think one thing to keep in mind, I don't know how many people know this, but during J.D. Vance's address in the Munich Security Conference, J.D. Vance hinted that Elon Musk is not even going to be in the Trump administration for an entire year. He said that he'll be around for a few months and you guys can handle him for that long. So should be noted that Elon Musk is already got like one foot out the door, so to speak. This is just a temp job. This is just a summer job for him.
The suit, filed by Democratic attorneys general from states like Arizona, Michigan, and Rhode Island, takes aim at the scope and scale of Musk's power. They note that the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, as it's called, has led the Trump administration's efforts to dramatically reduce the size of the federal workforce, dismantle entire agencies, and access sensitive data. Meanwhile, thousands of federal probationary workers have been fired the last 2 days.
I think it's kind of funny. So many people have been upset about government employees being able to see your social security number, which, like, that's a type of panic that I could never understand. You know, it's one of those moments where I'm like, man, I feel bad for people who have anxiety, you know, because it must be difficult to live through that. So that's why I'm doing a lot of like the left wingers who are also freaking out about this. Was like, you're talking about information that you've specifically given to the government. If the information that you've given to the government is explicitly, or information that is tied to you, provided to you by the government, as is the case with a social security number, for example, is not supposed to be shared with people who are employees of the federal government, then what's the point of all that information, right? Are you going to be being mad that the government knows your social security number is just that's just different. Let's say that.
Probationary workers are easier to fire because they lack the bargaining rights of career employees to appeal their terminations. Which brings me back to the image of Musk standing next to Trump in the Oval Office. Check out what Lawrence O'Donnell of MSNBC had to say about Elon Musk standing over Trump.
Ooh, I care about Lawrence O'Donnell's position.
A quote, picture of presidential subservience, the likes of which we have never seen, the most powerless image of a president of the United States ever created by a camera. Former Vice President Mike Pence never had a day like that in the Oval Office with Donald Trump. Vice President J.D. Vance will never have a day like that in the Oval Office with Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is the boss of J.D. Vance. We have no idea how dependent Donald Trump is on Elon Musk. There will probably never be a way of knowing, end quote.
This is funny. This is like such an MSNBC take. One way that I get my information, one way I get my news, is I've got like this list of podcasts that I try to go through. One of the podcasts is Bill O'Reilly's, another one is Tim Pool's, one is Unbiased by Jordan Is My Lawyer, one of them is Al Mueller's Debriefing, but also one of those podcasts is Rachel Maddow's video podcast. So it's not the full thing. I would die if I listened to full episodes of that thing. But it's a 30-minute or 20 to 30-minute long excerpt from Rachel Maddow's program. Usually it has either two segments, one very long monologue, or one monologue and then one interview. And it is really interesting to like listen to how her mind works as she's observing different things in the way the politics work. Now, some concerns that she has sort of exposed or presented, I think, are somewhat fair. So, for example, Doge, when they are firing people, they're somewhat aggressive, and in many cases, they end up firing people that then need to be rehired. That's a concern that I think is fair, to be like, hey, why don't you just double check the people you're firing actually should be firing before pressing that little red button to cut them off. Nah, that's a fair criticism. But many of the things that she is pointing out and saying, it's like you take what's going on and then you sort of add like the most nefarious ulterior motive to the scenario, and then you have an MSNBC take, right? So here, what we have from Lawrence O'Donnell is him looking at a visual of Elon Musk being visually higher or taller than Donald Trump and saying, oh, well, you know what that must mean? That means that Elon Musk is over Trump. Elon Musk has authority over Trump. And Trump is one of Elon Musk's stooges. Elon Musk is the Lord of the President of the United States, right? Like, it's a wild, bonkers take, but to understand where these takes are coming from, it's basically being like, hey, what's the worst possible aim or goal or intention behind these sorts of actions? It comes off very conspiratorial because, frankly, it is. It's very, very like blue and on conspiracy theory pilled to be like, well, Elon Musk was have authority over Donald Trump because Elon Musk was standing and Donald Trump was sitting. Like, it's very, very wild. It's got the brains of rabbits. It's very, very ridiculous.
Musk, there will probably never be a way of knowing, end quote. Lawrence O'Donnell, you may have a point.
Okay, now, I do know that generally speaking, I don't agree with him on everything that he says, but Stephen A. Smith is a generally reasonable man. So, I'm interested to see what he has to say about Lawrence O'Donnell's take here. Because it can't possibly be that, oh, because Elon Musk was standing over top of Donald Trump, then he has authority over Donald Trump. Like, no, I can't believe that that's the sort of take that Stephen A. Smith would have.
But respectfully, how many people really, really care? Because you see, when you're in the presidency of the United States of America, people normally assume the billionaires have your ear anyway. That they're telling you how they feel, what they want, what they need you to do.
That's a really good point as well. Because this is something that I've actually talked with people in real life before about, is that people assume that just because Donald Trump is publicly being like, oh, look, I'm a chum of Elon Musk, like, people assume that that means that all of a sudden we've fallen into an oligarchy. Now, I have great sympathy with you if this is something that you're genuinely upset about, because it is a fair complaint or concern to be like, well, you know, the way that a president might or might not be connected with a billionaire or with a big businessman, like a CEO of a big tech company, for example, is a bit concerning, right? You don't really want that person influencing the president of the United States too much. You, of course, do want there to be open channels of communication because, you know, when you have a company that big, it is very impactful on the economy of the United States, but you don't really want collusion, right? Or a tech CEO going up to the president of the United States and saying, hey, do these things because they're going to benefit me. Like, that's the type of stuff that you don't want to see. But the idea that what's going on right now is particularly unusual is a bit of a... I feel bad saying it's a naive take, but it does feel like a naive take because in observing politics over past years, this is something that's quite normal. It's quite normal for presidents to speak with big tech people. Now, it's unusual, I will say, to put one of those members of big tech, one of those CEOs, inside of the government itself, but it's not unusual for the government to have them operate as, you know, essentially a wing of your administration, right? We saw big tech get into the pocket of Democratic operatives, right? Especially with Joe Biden, right? Under Joe Biden, right? We had the government literally reaching out to X saying, "Hey, censor these things for me," and then X saying, "Okay," right? That was a bit odd, right? That was a bit sus, I would say. So the idea that like there hasn't been some sort of connection, or even the government hasn't been involved with things that big tech have done and vice versa, is a bit odd. It's a bit misguided. Now, I do think it's something to be like, this thing probably isn't the greatest. I never really was a big fan of Elon Musk being part of the federal government. I do hope that he leaves soon, like JD Vance has intimated might be the case. And I do think that Elon Musk is generally underqualified for the types of work that he is being tasked with as the leader of Doge. But at the same time, having someone who doesn't have a lot of experience doesn't always lead to disastrous results. And I'm assuming that Elon Musk has checks and balances against himself laid out to him by the president or by how Doge is operated, right? We do know that Doge has a leader who is technically someone else who's not Elon Musk. So it's not like Elon Musk has the final say in everything that happens. And I would assume that if Elon Musk steps out of line, that Donald Trump would be the first person to set him straight. So, you know, I'm not extremely concerned, but I understand some people's concern if all of their concern is that Elon Musk is in Doge, right? A big tech CEO is part of the American government. That is a bit odd. That's a bit unusual. And it does hint to some of that collusion that a lot of us don't like, right? Nobody likes to see corruption in our federal government. So if you're concerned about that, I completely understand. Now, of course, one could ask, you know, would the government be functionally run differently if it was someone else and not Elon Musk being the head of that department? I'm not sure about that, right? I'm not 100% sure. I think that the firings would probably be done a lot better, but other than that, you know, who's to say?
And as a result, you capitulate to their desires, their wants, what they deem to be necessary, etc., etc. So it's not that big of a deal from an image perspective. Donald Trump is close to 80 years of age. He felt like sitting down instead of standing up. And yes, Elon Musk was in the Oval Office. He wasn't dressed appropriately. Most billionaires choose to dress the way that they want to dress. Had his son talking. His son actually interrupted the president when the president was talking. I get all of that. It's not the greatest look in the world, but
that's how kids behave. I don't understand the hate of a kid acting like a kid. Like, I mean, to be fair, a lot of leftists hate children, so maybe that's where that's coming from. But
it's not affecting anybody. Remember what Dave Chappelle did?
It affects government employees. I have to give a point there where it's like, you know, if you're one of these, I guess, unnecessary workers, right, in the federal government, or even like maybe you think that you're not unnecessary, maybe you are necessary, they're going to ask you back or whatever, ask for you back. It does affect you, right? If you're a government employee, I completely understand being upset about Elon Musk trying to cut jobs and try to reduce government spending, right? Because that is against your own self-interest. That's just a plain fact.
Remember what Dave Chappelle did with his opening monologue years ago on Saturday Night Live? And he talked about how Donald Trump was going up against Hillary. And he said, if you don't like the amount of money I'm paying with my taxes, then change the tax code. But we know you won't, because my donors are the same as your donors. And then Dave Chappelle said, ladies and gentlemen, that is when a star was born. Never before, this is Dave Chappelle talking, not me. Never before have we seen a politician playing a game in that house walk out of the house and tell you, we are in that house doing everything you suspect
True.
we're doing in that house.
True.
And then when
Now, of course, the question is, are you happy about the increased transparency, right? Or are you mad that the game is being played in the first place? I think my issue with a lot of people complaining about Elon Musk is that they weren't complaining before, and they didn't give a hoot about the Twitter files. So a lot of it just comes off as hypocritical and sanctimonious and partisan, rather than coming from a genuine place of, I want to stop corruption in the American government.
doing in that house. And then went the hell back in the house and started playing the game all over again. Why do I bring that up? Because one could easily argue that that's exactly the imagery that Trump was giving you. Just like I have a billionaire or two or three that I might capitulate to, lean on, etc., get their advice, their counsel, or do their bidding, is what all of these politicians have been doing all of these years. I just wasn't afraid to show it to you on camera. So Lawrence O'Donnell is not, in all likelihood, is not wrong. In all likelihood, is pointing out.
The reasoning is kind of dumb, but yeah, I just don't think that Elon Musk has power over Donald Trump is the thing. And that's what Lawrence O'Donnell's whole point is that Trump is subservient to Elon Musk. I just don't see that.
And providing an accurate depiction of what we saw on camera. But in the end, what does it amount to? Not a damn thing. Because Trump is unlike anything we've ever seen in the world of politics.
True.
You can accuse him of things. You can indict him on things. You can convict him on things. You can literally, legally get away with calling him a convicted felon. And he still went out and got more than 77 million votes for the presidency of the United States of America.
Almost 50% of the popular vote.
It's not going to work, Democrats. You're going to have to come up with a new plan. And it shouldn't be Stephen A. Smith for president. I got better things to do with my life. I love talking politics. But me running for office, shaking hands, kissing babies, campaigning, begging donors and folks for money and begging politicians to do my bidding.
The funny thing is, I've heard people like subsequently after this clip came out say, hey, Stephen A. Smith, you should be president of the United States. And he was like, man, you don't want that. You're not ready for that smoke. No, just sit back and be the leftist version of, or maybe not leftist because he's not a leftist, I don't think, but be the left-wing version of Joe Rogan that the left has been asking for, ever since the Democrats lost the election. They've been chanting for a messiah. So maybe Stephen A. Smith should step up to the plate.
Can't see it. Won't never say anything's impossible, but I can't see it. I like my life. But if you're the Democratic Party, you need a new voice. You need new voices. You need to make some noise, and you need to do it in effective and efficient fashion instead of whistling into the winds like you've been doing. Lawrence O'Donnell, respect that man. Highly knowledgeable, knows what he's talking about. Wasn't wrong with what he just said. It's just futile. Not enough people care.
I like how it said feudal, like Feudal, and that's literally what I thought in my mind. I was like, hey, he's saying futile just like feudal, and then YouTube catches it as feudal. Interesting. What are the comments saying is, what I find funny is no one cared about who was running the country when we had a potato for president. If we recognize we the people are the authority and we're supposed to be peers, fear gets reduced to nothing. I mean, true. I think you're being a little bit dramatic in the second sentence, but I mean, yeah, fair. Oh yeah, one other person in the comment section says, it doesn't matter who's in charge when you see $55 million FEMA dollars going to house illegals in one Pakistan-owned New York hotel, or $100 billion in Social Security payments going to unknown for unknown reasons. That also is a good point, right? It's like, just stop the bad things that are happening. But I mean, a lot of people are focused on blame rather than actually fixing the problems at hand. Stephen A. Smith, I never heard you asking who was running the Oval Office these past 4 years. Certainly wasn't none that was elected. True, to an extent, although, I mean, Joe Biden leans on his aides. You sort of vote not just for the president, but the people that the president is going to have around him. So I don't entirely buy that, but I get where that person's coming from. This comment here says, so MSNBC is credible now. Very, very funny. Very, very funny. I mean, one thing that's fair too is that I think a lot of people who have been following politics for years and years and years is that they're more likely to trust people who have been in the media for a while. And Lawrence O'Donnell fits that bill. He's so old. He's been around for so long. I literally thought that MSNBC got rid of his show too, because they keep on firing people, right? I thought that the only person left was Rachel Maddow, and they had kicked her out of weeknights and brought her back. So I was like, oh, she's like the only person left, but no. I guess they have Lawrence O'Donnell still. I don't know if Chris Hayes is still there. They keep on firing people because their ratings are terrible. Man, that was an interesting segment from Stephen A. Smith. He's got a good head on his shoulders. I don't agree with everything that he says or stands for politically, but that's a good guy to observe. If you're looking for like a left-wing political commentator, I would say that dude is not a to be approved. Not to say that you guys are looking to me for approval for a left-wing commentator, but I think he's a fun guy to listen to. And he's quite fair.